Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you for having me join you today. It's always fantastic to be able to talk about Xplor. It's certainly something that I'm really passionate about.
First and foremost, I want to thank Emily and Jess from Prospector Portal for hosting this webinar on our behalf. We've certainly enjoyed the partnership that we've been building with y'all over the last couple of years, and very much appreciate the support for Xplor and the opportunity to be here to talk about the program and share the story with the Prospector networks. So good morning from Perth. I think, not sure where everybody is around the world, but good morning, good evening, and thank you all for spending your time here today to learn more about the Xplor program. I'm sure there's questions on what exactly is Xplor. We've made it through our first year, but still very much a new program, and we get a lot of what exactly is it and how does it work? So we'll address some of those types of questions. We've put together a different innovative business model that we hope changes the game in exploration. And we're pretty excited about what we accomplished our first year, and even more excited to get it all started again as we look to recruit for the cohort for 2024.
Just as a quick introduction, my name is Libby Sharman. I'm the technical lead for BHP Xplor. I'm a geologist by background, working in mineral exploration for longer than I care to think about. But I'm here to talk to you about the Xplor program. I've been involved with Xplor for about a year. We kicked off last August and ran a successful program through the first half of this year, 2023. And the takeaway, the one thing I hope you remember from today is that we are actually currently accepting applications for our 2024 cohort. And you can find information on our website, which is bhp.com/Xplor. What I'm here to talk to you a little bit about today is the Xplor program, and why we think it's delivering different and dynamic discoveries, and bringing a new dimension to minerals exploration.
So my name is Charlie Johnson. I am the program lead for Xplor, and I've been a part of this incredible organization that we've built since early last year. This is the story, and it started just over a year ago. Like I said, Xplor was an idea on paper when I joined the team. It was a 4-page memo, and we've since built it into a new and different business model that is hopefully going to change the game in minerals exploration for both BHP and small companies and individuals with big ideas.
This is the disclaimer that I'm sure you're really excited that I got to this. You can go back on the recording and watch and read the disclaimer if you really want to, but as with all these presentations, it needs to be in there. And just a quick introduction for you to BHP, in case you're not familiar who we are. BHP is the world's largest integrated mining company with over 80,000 employees globally. We mine 5 main commodities: copper for the electrification of our planet, nickel for the batteries that are driving things like electric vehicles, potash for more sustainable agriculture, and iron ore and met coal, which are specifically used in steel manufacturing. So that's what BHP does at the front end. That's the mining side of it. What I'm actually here to talk to you today about is way the other end of the mining chain, which is exploration. And BHP Xplor was designed to find a way for BHP to interact and partner with early stage concept driven exploration companies globally.
So for Xplor, Xplor is first of its kind accelerator model fit and customized to minerals exploration. So you may be wondering what Silicon Valley had to do with it and why they're featured on this slide. And that is very simple in that the accelerator business model is something that's common in Silicon Valley in the venture capital and technology space specifically. So Y Combinator was the beginning of accelerators as we know them today. And they were designed to be a model to identify early stage, in Y Combinator's case, technology ideas that could be accelerated through the right funding and support models through coaching and mentoring and access to networks and subject matter experts. So they find these really unique ideas at a very early stage. They invest in them, provide support, and essentially accelerate the ideas to commercialization. This idea was something that BHP picked up on early last year, as I mentioned, and looked at it and said, this is something interesting and something that we think would be of value to exploration specifically as we go out with our growth mandate to identify new big ideas for the future of exploration. How can we leverage this existing successful business model that is common in technology and apply it to minerals exploration? And that's what we did. So last year, we turned that idea into a reality. We launched the first call for applications for Xplor last August, around the same time last year. And the response was very positive. Fortunately, we hit the market at a time where funding for early stage projects was at an all-time high. The access to risk capital was quite challenging last year, as it is again this year. And this model has proved beneficial from both a funding perspective and the support that's provided to the teams and opportunities to accelerate the ideas.
But what we also wanted to do with it was work out, as I said, how we could really build these partnerships and how we could provide space for junior exploration companies or individuals to slow down and think about their projects, to catch some breathing space so that they could then accelerate them. And one of the key things that we got feedback on was that the program that we ran this year really did build confidence between BHP and the junior companies, as well as the junior companies' confidence in themselves and their concepts. I could keep talking, but there is a quote here on the screen from Ross McGowan, who is the CEO of Tutume Metals. He was part of our cohort this year. And his comment is that confidence in exploration is key. And this program gave us the confidence to go out and explore. And I think that's a really fantastic way of summing up how we see the benefits of the BHP Xplor program.
What this does is provides or sets up the potential for this model to be dynamic in the sense that it has the potential to change the industry. So the way that big companies like BHP work with smaller companies, whether they're privately owned, publicly listed, or individuals, Xplor has opened this new door to BHP and allowed people to come in a new way. And through the 6-month program, we've built this collaborative environment and working relationship that sets up a new partnership model.
Hopefully by now what you're sitting there thinking is, man, this sounds pretty cool, but is it for me? And what I'm hoping you'll take away from this is that BHP Xplor is definitely for you. We accept applications from individuals, so people with their own ideas, or maybe small groups that don't have a structured company, from all stages of career experience, through to private companies. So those groups who do have a company structure but aren't listed, and then all the way through to those publicly listed companies. And really, we not only accept applications from everybody within those 3 groups, but we saw those 3 groups reflected in the first cohort that we had, that, as I said, wrapped up in June. A quick comment, we do also look for ways to bring in people who have technology development ideas, service providers, vendors, geophysical contractors, all of that. And what we actually do is look at ways that we can pair vendors, service providers, technology developers with the cohort companies to then be able to mutually develop exploration techniques that will further accelerate opportunities. I would encourage you, if you do have that sort of idea, to reach out to the Xplor email address, xplor@bhp.com, and we can take a conversation from there.
As I mentioned earlier, the program has really set up a new way to power partnership between BHP and our counterparties and participating companies. What's in it for the participating companies is featured here. It starts with funding. So each of the participating companies to Xplor gets a $500,000 grant. This is non-dilutive funding and is distributed over the course of the 6-month program. The purpose and the use of that grant varied by each company. So what we saw during the program this year is varied uses of that funding. We recognize that $500,000 is not a material enough investment to run an exploration campaign, but what it is to be used for is to help companies get established, to build capacity in hiring people, to access land tenements and get above ground permits and other things sorted so that exploration can begin, all the way to, in one case, one of our companies did use it for some of the exploration drilling work that they had underway when they entered into the program. So there's a definitely a span of use for that funding based off of the opportunity and the company. And the ultimate objective is to get these opportunities to a point where the real exploration work can begin. So that's funding. The second is connections. So obviously BHP is a company of over 80,000 employees. We have access to some of the world's leading experts in geoscience, in operations, in business strategy. And we called on these types of people to participate in the Xplor program this year. Fortunately, people internally at BHP want to be a part of the program just as much as we have the demand from the external environments. So we saw great participation from BHP internal experts directly supporting our cohort companies through the program period. Additionally, we have access to pretty vast external networks and service providers at BHP, and we connected our cohort companies to that network. One of the in-person events that we ran as part of the program period was called our Toolkit Camp, and we ran this alongside the PDAC conference in Toronto. And one day was dedicated solely to making introductions between our cohort companies and networks of service providers that were relevant to their companies and their opportunities. Finally, global community. So through our first program and with our first group of 7 companies, we've established a new global community of explorers. One of the most powerful things about an accelerator business model is the connection that's built within the cohort. And we saw this take off from the first week, our first in-person event that we ran in January. The cohort connected in a way that was pretty powerful. They're all explorers, treasure hunting across the world for new discoveries. And there was a pretty awesome connection built within the cohort. They self-named themselves the Magnificent Seven, and we have a pretty active WhatsApp chat between the group, checking in on each other, giving project updates, and it's been a pretty unique and powerful community that has been built. One of the simple ways that we like to think about the program is best said by Dr. Mike Jones with Impact Minerals. He called it a mini MBA in minerals exploration. So it's a combination of business strategy, technical and operational frameworks, all pulled together to help accelerate exploration concepts and ultimately get them to the point where exploration can happen and hopefully new discoveries are the result.
And it's a collaboration. What we want to do is create an opportunity for all of us to come together and solve some of those biggest challenges that are facing mineral exploration. Again, a quote from one of the cohort. A highlight for them was how the largest mining company in the world could partner with some of the smallest explorations in companies in the world and actually have a meeting of minds. And that to me really highlights exactly what we were trying to achieve with the program and with the cohort.
We're all in this for results and delivering results. And what results mean for Xplor are building long-term partnerships that can accelerate future discoveries. We're doing it in a new way with a business model that's never been seen before in minerals exploration. We see it as a potential game changer to change the notion of what it means to be a major versus a junior. Let's throw that aside. Let's all be explorers and work together to accelerate exploration and discoveries.
And really the common thread that underlies all of this, the BHP Xplor team, the cohort, who we're looking for the 2024 cohort, is passion. Passion for that discovery, passion for that treasure hunt, passion to come together and do things better, to find those new ways of work. And just to leave you with a quote from Juho, who was the chief geologist for Nordic Nickel, who said, "It's difficult to put it into words other than this is something life-changing." And I really hope that, having listened just to the very high level way I've taken you through the program, that if you do have that concept, that exploration idea, that you might consider coming on this journey of discovery for us and bringing the passion you have for treasure hunting to the BHP Xplor program. Thank you.
Which leads me to the call for application, call to action. So we are currently open for application and looking for our next cohort, our cohort calendar year 2024. Our applications opened 2 weeks ago, and we're seeing a really good amount of activity come through. They will remain open through October 11th, and we look forward to seeing you and your ideas. There's more information that can be found on the website, and we will also have additional webinars and drop-in sessions as opportunities to connect with the team.
Just kind of open up and ask you, like, what was the most fun part of Xplor 1.0, working through the application process and the cohort process for the first year?
I mean, how much time do we have? Because this really has been a career highlight for me. I came out of the junior industry to join BHP. And so working in that agile space and seeing how decisions can be made quickly, but also being aware of the financing limitations and how that drives decisions in juniors, taking that into a major and seeing how BHP does things, how it thinks about things, being able to take those lessons back out to the cohort, and things like going through the mineral system with them. And it's a bit of a buzzword right now. We use it in BHP in a very specific way, introducing it to this room of 14 cohort members, 12 of which were geologists, 1 mining engineer, and we had a finance guy who actually was the biggest cheerleader for mineral systems by the end of it, because he said, and probably this is getting to my point, he said he felt like it finally gave him a common language to talk to his geology teams. And for me, that being able to present that thought process to the entire group, and then to have the finance guy
Get it?
tell me that he felt like that let him communicate, was just amazing. And then just following these companies on their journeys through the 6 months, being able to engage with them, having those coaching sessions, doing some of the field visits, and watch how they evolved the thinking of their concepts and how far they came in 6 months, and the difference the program made, was just, I don't know, fun is the right word, but it was just such an amazing feeling as a professional to be involved in that process.
No, that's awesome. Some of the similar questions that we've gotten are certainly on like the commitment level from the company, right? And I wonder if you could start with, as companies are looking at it, if they didn't look at it last year, what kind of time commitment or kind of resource commitment does a team or a company have to be able to make to the program itself if they're selected starting off in January?
The first part of this answer is what is the level of commitment? So we ask that 2 representatives from each company or entity participate as part of the program. And what we saw last year is we had a CEO, executive leader from each company, so kind of the business side, and then we had a senior technical leader from each company. So there were 2 representatives for each, participating across all of the events. The program itself is a combination of in-person and virtual events. It runs January through June, so 6 months in total. There are 3 in-person events. Our boot camp in January, that's a week-long event. This is the first point that we bring the cohort together and officially kick off the program. So we run a series of master classes over the course of that week on business strategy, our technical readiness, which is underpinned by the mineral systems frameworks, and operational readiness, which was a series of risks and operational type of sessions led by our internal experts and some external service providers. So boot camp in January, then I mentioned earlier toolkit camp in March. Again, this is run alongside the PDAC conference in Toronto. And the purpose of that session is to make those introductions to service providers. So we had each of our participating companies last year identify the list of service providers that were a fit for their companies and their opportunities. And we ran a speed dating day, essentially where the companies went through a series of half a dozen to a dozen meetings, depending on what they selected, to meet with service providers. That one was a little bit of an experiment in our first year, but the feedback that we got from the cohort was pretty resounding, that it was one of the best focus days that they had at PDAC altogether, and that they had more direct conversations with providers that could impact their business in that single day than they could have during the whole time at the conference. So we'll definitely bring that back again based off of that feedback. And then lastly, the last month of the program in June, we have a couple events that are also in person. The showcase at the end is for the entire cohort. It's our kind of culmination of the program. We wrap everything up from a programming perspective, and then we have an externally facing event where we get to showcase the cohort companies and everything that they've achieved during the program. The pitch event is for the subset of the companies that BHP invites to pitch for further investment. So one thing I did not mention as part of the program benefit is the opportunity for follow-on investment. Follow-on investment is not a guarantee as part of the program, but it is something that for those opportunities and teams where BHP does see a strategic fit from a technical opportunity perspective, and the potential for long-term partnerships, we invite those companies in to pitch for further investment, and then those decisions will be made following the program. Again, a direct answer to your question from a time perspective. So there's the in-person events, and we'll have the calendar and the dates set out for those in advance. And then in between those in-person events, we run a series of virtual master classes on a ranging number of topics that is actually kind of custom designed around the cohort companies. And the expectation there is that it would be a maximum of 4 hours per fortnight.
Does Xplor extend to brownfield sites which have expansion potential, or only to new discoveries?
That's a really good question. We absolutely do consider brownfield sites. What we would be looking for is what is the new idea on that brownfield site. So the perfect example is Impact Minerals, who were in the program last year. They came to us with a concept around Broken Hill, funnily enough. So taking us back to where BHP started. And they felt that through some work that's been done by academics in Australia, some geochemical modeling, that there was potential for undiscovered copper at Broken Hill. And so that's a perfect example of how something concept driven was applicable to a brownfield site. Now, that being said, if you did put something in that was a sort of brownfields play, that we didn't think was appropriate for Xplor, but we did think other parts of our business would be interested in, we would, with your permission, then share it with that part of the business. So it isn't just that if you put an application in, it goes as far as Xplor and that's it. If you are interested and we do think it's appropriate for other groups, we will pass on information for discussion.
When I know one point that I always want to make sure to clarify with folks when they've asked me about what y'all are doing is like, it's also, while there is the opportunity to pitch for some companies at the end, it's not like a game of Survivor, right? Like where there's like 1 or 2 companies that are going to make it to the end. Like the goal is for you all to work with the companies and meet them where they are, or teams, to where there's an enduring partnership. It may not be that there's the right fit at the end of, you know, this little stretch for another investment opportunity, but the goal is to kind of like create that relationship and the long-term opportunity to work together if and when the company is interested in that, right?
That's absolutely right. We're not Survivor. There is no winner at the end. We're also not Shark Tank either. Shark Tank's the other one we get, and that's not accurate either. This is every company that we bring in, we see big potential for. We like their technical opportunities, and we like the teams. If they get selected into the program, those are 2 big criteria for us. So the objective is that through the program, each participating company has accelerated their opportunity. It's at a better place when it leaves us than when it started, through the support that we provide and the funding. And whether BHP invests or not is a strategic portfolio decision. What we have committed to all the cohort companies very clearly from the start of the program is you're going to be at a better place for investment when you leave here, whether it's from BHP or not. And we stood by that commitment. That's also one of the reasons why we did the external showcase event is we had investors at that event, and we're putting all of the companies and the opportunities as they so chose at their choice, the ability to showcase in front of an external group with BHP and others as investors.
All right, is there a minimum size potential for Xplor? Many early stage exploration projects don't yet have an indication of size.
Another really good question, and one that's the answer to that is yes and no. If you go into the application form, you will see that there are questions there where we ask you to propose how big you think your concept might get. We definitely encourage you to dream big, although we do ask if you can justify your thinking. But, you know, if you are looking at copper porphyries in the Andes and you think Escondida is an analog deposit, then, you know, go for it, right? One of the great joys of early stage projects is the potential that they hold. And so all that being said, BHP obviously does have a size potential component to the projects that we look at. We ideally want things that have long mine life, gives us optionality, gives us scope within the business. But that isn't the only way we see value within Xplor. So yes, finding a world-class deposit through Xplor is fantastic, and that's one of the goals. But every one of us on this call probably know the statistics of the chances of that happening. And so we do see value in understanding new deposits, understanding new ways of working, creating those long-term partnerships, understanding new jurisdictions. All of that is value as well for BHP Xplor. And so while yes, you know, in the long term for the broader business, there is that portfolio requirement, Xplor is not as bound by those restrictions as other parts of the business.
And I think what's neat about that, and for folks to keep in mind, is especially you know, with the maybe smaller teams or individuals with the focus on the conceptual side, that's part of the power of that, right? The concept may not get proven out, and in reality, you don't want people. The goal is not to prove your concept during the 6-month or during the cohort period, right? But to build out the concept so you can go and find the next big world-class deposit with it, even if it's not necessarily on the property that the company has right now or the team is looking at right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, we don't even require for applications to hold tenements or hold ground. You know, one of the cohort Kings Rows came to us with a large scale regional prospectivity concept without any ground held, and that was absolutely something that was appropriate for the program. So you will see there's a question in the application asking if you hold tenements and that sort of thing, and that is purely for our information rather than any kind of screening requirement for the application process.
So the application process is underway. As I mentioned before, applications are open through October 11th. And on the Xplor, on our side, we have a series of steps that we take each application through, starting with the application screening. So we obviously review all the applications and identify a subset of applications that we will bring into what we call technical discussions. So this is a virtual call between Xplor team and the applicant. And this is an opportunity for us to hear directly from you and be able to inquire a little bit deeper on the opportunity that was submitted on the application. Our first touch point is to read about it in writing. Our second touch point is to have this virtual conversation to be able to understand more, mainly focused on the technical elements of the application. From there, we further select a subset of applicants to join us for in-person interviews. So we will have our interview week, the week of November 13th in Toronto. And we'll have, again, a subset of applicants attend. Last year, we invited 2 representatives from each company. Again, the CEO or executive leader and a technical representative to attend on behalf of the company. And we have an interview panel that includes both the Xplor team and some other functions within BHP that have conversations with each applicant, ask a series of questions, and then ultimately that leads into our decision of cohort selections. So we make our final selections end of November, and we will be extending invites into the program in early December, and are looking to have everybody signed up to the participation agreement and onboarded for the program before the holiday season this year.
What characteristics does an exploration project need to demonstrate in order to qualify for the partnership with BHP?
So this is one of the hardest questions to answer. Thank you for whoever put it in the Q&A. And the way I describe this is what I do when I'm reading applications, when I'm screening applications. And it's a bit like when you're reading a press release or a technical report or a paper, and you read something and you go, huh, or that's cool, or man, I want to know more about this, or I never even thought of that. It is that thing that we have a team of people who assess these applications who've worked all over the world in a lot of different deposit types. And with the applications, we are constantly seeing new ideas, new concepts, and it is that secret sauce. And I know this isn't possibly as specific as the person who asked the question who wants, but it really is what excites you about this opportunity? What makes you want to go out and work on this every day? And then the other piece of it is, and this is purely technical, and I can speak to the other components in a minute. The other piece of it is having some form of geological justification for your idea. This doesn't mean you have to have a ton of data. If you have thought about it in the mineral systems framework, which is to say, what are the key geological processes that would need to happen for your concept to be true, that's fantastic. If you've been out and you've done some reconnaissance field work, does that support your evidence? Is it a geophysical survey? Is it geochemical data? Having something to ground your concept in the science is another key piece. And then from an above ground consideration, and actually technical again, we have a couple of questions in the application that ask about risks or unknowns, uncertainties. This is where you need to be really honest with yourself and with us, because every exploration opportunity has something you don't know, both from a from a technical perspective and from an above ground perspective.
Yeah.
Every single one of the opportunities that came into the cohort this year had technical and above ground uncertainties and risk. If you put in your application that there aren't any, I won't believe you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just, demonstrating that you've thought about them. If you do have a plan to address some of them, that's fantastic, but not necessary. And then the last piece we do look for is what you actually want to get out of being part of the program.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the funding is a big piece. There's no getting away from that. But the program is the other big component. And wanting to collaborate, wanting to form that partnership, wanting to think about new ways of working and new ideas, all of that, being able to demonstrate that awareness and desire, that's fantastic. That's a really key thing that we look for to consider how you would benefit from the program.
Well, and since you brought up the money, right, which everyone I'm sure has a million questions about, but we do have a few questions about the funding. So I'm just going to kind of group them together. So maybe I'll read those out. I'll come back to everyone that asked questions before, but I just kind of want to group them together so we can get folks some clarity on the funding side. One of the questions was, does the $500,000 US all have to be spent within the 6-month period of the program? And what if you're constrained by the timing of the field season? We also got a question, can some of the money available via Xplor be used for permitting for exploration and drilling, particularly in the US? On federal ground, no drilling can take place without plans of operation from BLM and the Forest Service. And then what does BHP receive in return for its financial support? So maybe that gives you an idea of a few of the kind of financial questions to hit on the overview of that.
Yeah, 100%. So the money, the $500,000, does not all have to be spent in the 6-month period. We are well aware of restrictions like summer field seasons, access, that sort of thing. However, seeing a work plan during application discussions of how you would spend the money is valuable for us. There are some things you can't spend the money on, although mostly that is don't do anything illegal, don't buy a yacht.
Well, deep sea money, like, I mean.
Okay. Maybe a scientific
Giving
vessel,
away
but
my
not a yacht.
application. I'm giving away my application prep. Yeah.
But using funding for things like permitting, we actually do highlight the importance of ESG, free, prior, and informed consent, following due process, all of those sorts of things within the program. So absolutely, using the money for stakeholder engagement, or all of these sorts of things are very much encouraged. We don't mandate how you spend the money, but we do have conversations in what might be a efficient and accelerated way of using the funds. Some companies in the program this year chose to bring some of their own money as well to the program to complement the work. You can use it for drilling, but a measure of success in the program is not necessarily drill intersections. Mm-hmm. There is not an expectation that you will have drilled something by the end of the 6 months, and in many jurisdictions that's just not reasonable to get permits in that time. So there's a lot of discussions there, and those discussions will happen if your concept advances through the different stages of application assessment. There will be conversations around that happen. But we try not to the idea is to open up possibilities through this program, not put restrictions on. In terms of what BHP gets, this is always the elephant in the room. You know, the suspicion of, well, you can't be doing this for free, and we're not. You know, we get access to your ideas and the ways you're thinking and having those conversations and those geological concepts, your experience and knowledge of a particular jurisdiction. All of this is valuable for BHP. And what we hope it does is lead to long-term partnerships, and for some of the program participants, long-term investments, where we would discuss more conventional investment structures, equity stakes, JVs, alliances, things like that. But what we didn't want to do was create, again, any kind of restriction or boundary to the program being a success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where I think for everybody to hear, one of the things that I find really unique about the Xplor program is they want you to get off of the fundraising and drilling hamster wheel, right? That is not the point, is just to take 500K and like go drill and then go raise money with whatever you got out of the drilling program. Like, it really is very different from the traditional junior kind of exploration financing cycle in that way. The point is to take a breath, go big picture for a little bit, right? And that's part of the goal, is for that funding to allow you to kind of get off the hamster wheel for a few months and pull out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Something we were talking about is that it actually allows you to slow down so that you can accelerate. So giving you the time and the funds to think about your project in a different way, look at what's available, look at the cutting edge ideas around the geology and technologies of exploration, and see how you can then take that and run with it.
When is the program going to start in Latin America? This is global, right? This is very inclusive of Latin America. So the same schedule, same application process for Latin American projects. And then also we got one, are there any countries that are off limits? Are there any exclusions?
So really good question. And regarding the Latin American piece, it is absolutely a global process. So applications are open now and they go till the 11th of October. That is true for everyone. We didn't have a Latin American project in our first cohort. That wasn't for any other reason than we didn't find something with that special sauce in the first round of applications. There were some projects that came close, but didn't quite make it through. In general, nothing is off limits. Something I say a lot, and I stole it from one of the cohort, was that geology doesn't respect country boundaries. You know, when you're thinking about geological ideas, you want to think about geological terrains and provinces. That being said, there are legal restrictions on where we can go, and those are really sanctioned countries. So that is purely a legal restriction as a global company, that we cannot engage in business with certain countries.
And I would say, if any of you have like really specific questions about that, that would be something else also to drop an email about, right, Libby? I mean, if you want to kind of confirm or validate which jurisdictions those would be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So dropping an email, you know, you can find all our contact information on the Xplor website. And then we are doing drop-in sessions coming up in the next couple of weeks, where you can book a 15-minute slot for a one-on-one conversation to answer specific questions as well. And I think those schedules will be going up on the website this week.
Awesome. We got a question about the person who submitted the question. Their company has multiple concessions, so he just wanted to confirm that they create a separate submission for each concession, or do they put them all together?
Excellent question. And it, as with so many of these questions, it very much depends. If you think those separate concessions form a broader regional concept that you want to pursue. So is it that you think you've got a new porphyry belt? Is it that you think you've got a new greenstone belt for nickel? And you've got concessions throughout that belt, put them together into one concept. If, on the other hand, you have groups of concessions and they are different types of projects, so say one is a porphyry play, one is an epithermal play, one is a skarn, maybe, think about breaking them up into separate opportunities, separate applications, or thinking about which ones best represent what you think your concept is. So really, it again goes back to that geological concept piece and which you think appropriately reflects that.
Okay. And then we got 2 questions on kind of the post-cohort investment by BHP. We got one question on, have the effective quote unquote right of first refusals BHP has to invest in the first cohort of companies expired, or are they evergreen or still being considered? And then another question on how many of the original 7 companies in the first cohort have gone on to secure additional funding or agreements or partnerships with BHP. So maybe you want to just speak. I don't know if you could speak the specific ones or maybe in general.
Yeah, so in general, there are conversations ongoing with some of the cohort 1 companies around additional funding. I can't go into any more specifics than that because of the confidentiality of those discussions. Some of, there's a broad cross-section of companies within the 2023 cohort, and it's not appropriate for me to be going into any more details, but those conversations are ongoing. And there will be announcements made as and when it's appropriate.
So I think another really key point to that, though, like the objective of the program was not to like have announcements at the end of the program that BHP is now also investing in. So, it's not like a competition it's not Survivor, right? Where you're going to end up with a winner at the end and, or things are announced. That the goal really is to create and foster that relationship so that those conversations continue on an appropriate pathway and timeline for whatever that project and team is interested in.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that is part of the reason we had Showcase in Brisbane, which was a public event. And all 7 companies presented their opportunities, presented their Xplor journey. And they shared as much or as little as they felt comfortable with in the public domain. We had one drill intersection announcement from Asian Battery Metals, which was really cool. But we stand behind every single one of the concepts and companies that we had through the first round of Xplor. And any subsequent investment decisions have been made very much on portfolio fit and on what we saw through the program. But it in no way is an indication of the quality of the projects or a desire to continue to work with the companies.
We got a few questions on like the service provider or technology side, and again, you had mentioned at the beginning that you are open to hearing from service providers and technology providers. So there was a question on, do they submit a proposal in the same submission process? So do technology proposals which would be used for exploration follow a similar proposal submission process as those for the exploration project proposals? And similarly, how can service providers be part of the program?
Yeah, this is a tricky one, and there's a couple of different answers to this depending on where you're at and what you're thinking. So one possibility is to submit an application through the open application process. You may find that some of the questions are a little bit challenging to answer, but what it may also provide you an opportunity to do is if you have a really cool new technology that you're developing and you actually think that you have a region somewhere on the planet that would be the perfect test site, then think about how that can be built up as an opportunity. Think about what you would test, what the outcomes would be, what would the deliverables be at the end of a 6-month program. So that is one route. Another route is to fill in the application as best you can. And one thing that's worth saying is, and I think I mentioned it earlier, even if an application isn't successful for Xplor, it might be appropriate for a different part of the business. And then we would pass, so say it was a technology development piece, we may pass that on to our innovation or ventures team or resource center of excellence to then look at an opportunity to develop the technology through a different channel within the business. Yeah. So that can also happen. Then there is sending information through to the Xplor inbox, and we would look at it separately. And then there is expressing an interest of working with the cohort, and we hold a couple of events. One in particular is Toolkit Camp, which happens around PDAC, where we invite service providers in to meet one-on-one with the cohort and discuss how they might be able to work together going forward. So there's a couple of different avenues, depending on where you're at in the journey as a technology developer or a service provider, and what avenue you might want to be looking at to partner with BHP.
So it sounds like in general, if you've got like, I mean, I think that's a really clear differentiator. If you have an area that you want to prove the technology on that you think would be a project, that's a great route for that. If you don't, and it's more of like, hey, I just want to get in front of BHP and the cohort, kind of look at the other options. Okay.
Yeah.
On kind of a clustering some ESG type questions, we got, how about collaboration with other companies? Can you carry out exploration for and with artisanal and small mining outfits? And then also, are there specific ESG standards that are required to be in place?
Another really good set of questions. So no, we do not have a particular set of standards we expect to be in place. And actually, one of the things we go through early on in the program is considerations around above ground risk, ESG, community engagement, free, prior, and informed consent, all of these really key pieces that are part of the exploration landscape. What we do look for is an appreciation of these things and that they are important, but not that you've necessarily got something in place or formalized. Again, especially if you've got a desktop concept, we're not going to have expected you to have gone out and done community engagement or government stakeholder relationships. But those are things that we can take you through some ways of working and some things to think about during the program. In terms of working with other third parties, in particular smaller groups or artisanal miners, that is one that I'm not entirely sure how to answer. We would probably want to see what sort of agreements you had with those groups in place and how you were going to, what the governance was going to be around that. We have no specific restrictions if there are, say, artisanal miners or smaller groups in the area that you're looking at. But then it would be a discussion and another partnership of working together to see what the right path forward would be for managing that.
Okay. And so much like everything else, write the application for who and what you are, right? So if that's part of your strategy and your vision and what you want to work on, then just be upfront with that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We've got a definitional question outside of BHP Xplor. What does BHP consider a tier 1 copper ore body?
Oh, a nice easy one for for a Wednesday afternoon. So our definitions of tier 1 ore bodies are confidential internal definitions that we work towards. However, within exploration, there is absolutely the acknowledgement that nothing that is tier 1 now was tier 1 when it was discovered. Exploration is about potential and opportunity. And again, success in the Xplor program isn't necessarily about finding a tier 1 deposit. Obviously, that's in the end what BHP is looking for its portfolio. Has to meet certain standards, but that's not all that this program is about. So I know I've skirted around that question a little, and I apologize, but there are things I can and can't share.
Sure. Yeah.
as part, and there was that disclaimer at the beginning of the presentation.
Are there any characteristics or attributes of the company's team or the individual, if it's an individual submitting, that Xplor is targeting? What are you looking for on the team and the people side?
Mostly the desire to learn and share and collaborate. You know, the program, and if you listen to some of the interviews that are available online with the cohort, and my experience was the community experience, the coming together and the open sharing of ideas was incredibly important to the success of the program. We established a psychologically safe work environment right off the bat. You know, this kind of collaborative way of working functions best when everybody wants to be in the room. And so when we are looking at teams and we are talking to people, that is a key component. Is this going to be a team and a group that wants to learn and collaborate? Or are they going to sit in the corner and take their own notes and you know, not want to participate? And that can change the dynamic of a program like this very quickly. So that the desire to learn and partner and explore new things and a passion for discovery are really the cornerstone of what we're looking for in the teams or the individuals who apply.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that, and that diversity of thought and how the different groups are approaching things. So key for exploration with a national body like a geological survey agency.
This is a good one. This is a really valid question, and it's one that's come up a couple of times in discussion. And to be honest, I don't know where we've landed with that legally. We have challenges around working with government agencies, and a lot of national geological surveys and things are government bodies. Right. And so we would probably have to look on a case-by-case basis of what the legal and company governance was around, you know, to be blunt, sending $500,000 to a government, which, you know, comes with questions. Right. And so, you know, I'm being a little bit silly about this, and it's not really appropriate, but it is definitely something that is within our legal and our governance teams to make the final answer on that kind of decision.
Okay, and I would assume the same kind of case-by-case basis would also be looked at for state-owned companies or companies that have government ownership, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And then there is a series of due diligence questions within the application form. And if you progress through the other stages, those due diligence questions get more detailed and more in-depth. Okay.
And I don't see any more questions in the queue, so I'll give everybody a few more minutes in case you have any last ones. I also dropped in the link, like the Prospector website that takes you to different parts of the Xplor program to apply, or, you know, Q&A type things. But I guess one question for any of those who are on, because I know a few folks have reached out to me who applied last year, and what they asked over email and chat was, you know, has anything changed dramatically from last year? Should we apply again if we have a different way of looking at the problem or the concept? And I wonder if you want to speak to that, like if folks are considering doing another application if they didn't make it last year.
So the first thing I would say is absolutely, please do put in an application again, particularly if there has been extra work done on the program, or you have on the project, or if you've thought about it in a new way, as you say, Emily, or you know, new things have come to light, you're looking at it differently. I would like to say we've somewhat streamlined the application process this year. You can save your application and go back to it, which is an exciting exciting improvement for everybody. So, you know, really we're hoping it's not an onerous process. But, you know, every year will, you know, this year will be different from last year. And so what didn't make it past a certain stage last year may progress this year. And we absolutely encourage people to apply again. And again, if you did apply last year and you want to talk through your concept, using those drop-in times to have that opportunity to chat through things, absolutely encouraged.
So Libby and everybody who joined, thank you so much. And
thank you so much, Emily, for the invitation, and everybody for the fantastic questions and the discussion. And if you do see us in person at any events over the next month or so, feel free to come up, say hello, have a chat. And yeah, if you've got that special sauce and you want to put in an application, then please do.
Thank you again, Emily, for hosting us today. And thank you for everybody who attended. I appreciate your time to hear the Xplor story and what we're looking for, and hope to see your names again soon through the applications.